So did Elon flip on Trump? I kind of feel like I am too.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
As Elon said, the bill can't be both big and beautiful at the same time. It's going to be one or the other. And at this point, it's just plain big. I'd have much preferred that Trump pass this simply an extension of his 2017 tax cuts, and then we can layer on anything additional we want from there. But there's so many things involved now, it's become very, very murky. So let's just run through it real quick. They've said that they're going to, of course, extend the 2017 tax cuts. The campaign promises will be followed through on for no tax on tips as well as no tax on overtime. And the claim to fame is that it'll save $1,700 per family. Of course, that's versus the tax cuts expiring. The tagline they're putting on there is that it'll give families 9 weeks of groceries. That's versus not extending the tax cuts. This isn't $1,700 incremental dollars that go into people's pocket. So, I mean, I support tax cuts, but honestly, this is going to add $3.8 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. I mean, like I said, I'll take tax cuts all day long. What was advertised here is that they would be paired with reductions in spending. Doge was targeting $2 trillion of savings, and then that was reduced to $1 trillion, and now they've called it a success at $150 billion. I'm still scratching my head over that one. That's a huge disparity there. The plan itself, it relies on tariffs to pay for these tax cuts. That might not fully happen. We will receive dollars from these tariffs, but will it fully cover it? No. It's supposed to also be offset by some spending reductions, as well as GDP growth rates being estimated by the bill, coming in at 5.2% short-term and 3.5% long-term. And the CBO is really estimating a much lower amount, leading to these high deficit levels. Keep in mind that during the Obama administration, we hovered at just under 2% for the lion's share of that of his tenure. And now asking for over 3% growth consistently, I think that's a lot to ask, especially if you think about us entering into a recession or any other bumps we hit along the road. It'll be a really difficult scenario to see come to fruition if we're counting on 3% GDP growth consistently, or actually higher than 3% GDP growth consistently. So again, CBO is estimating $3.8 trillion over 10 years on the tax cuts alone. But with some of these other parts of it, it may hit $5.3 trillion. The debt ceiling is also going to be raised in the short term by $4 trillion. I don't think there's any way around that. Again, a lot of this stuff is not very fiscally conservative. This is more a liberal approach to things. So it makes me uneasy because, again, these tax cuts were not paired with decreases in spending. And the growth rates that they're estimating for GDP are astronomical, honestly, on a consistent basis. But hopefully we'll hear more, and there's more details that'll come out as to how they're planning on executing and stimulating that type of growth. I wonder now, actually thinking through it, if part of that is contingent on the lowering of interest rates to help spur that growth. But the bill claims to also do about 4% of spending cuts. Most of that is coming from Medicaid, $700 billion being reduced. And the funny part about it is that the biggest driver of that $700 billion reduction is instituting work requirements by 2026. So the liberals are saying that it could leave 5.2 million uninsured, but all they really have to do not to lose insurance is to find employment for about 80 hours a month, and you'll still have your Medicaid. If you're not employed, you can volunteer for that amount of time, and that would suffice for that duration as well. So work for 80 hours, and you can have Medicaid still. I don't think that's a big ask, but interestingly, the Commonwealth Fund, which looks at healthcare as their big focus, it leans left, but they're estimating that $504 billion can be saved by these work requirements alone. I don't know how they came up with that calculus in detail, but that's the number that they're advertising out there. Of the $700 billion, 504 of it potentially can come from just the instituting of those work requirements. That starts to make a little bit more sense to me if, human behavior really comes to fruition like that, if that's what they're basing on. That there would be, just under $200 billion of overhead that they're looking to cut out from the federal level and just pass these dollars on to states. So there's other entitlements and clean energy policies that will get defunded. I'm fine with most of that. I'm fine with the clean energy pieces. We need to get these economies running on their own without having these massive subsidies. They need to accelerate how they become, economical and economically feasible in terms of their business model and the quality of the technology that comes out. We can't continue to subsidize them. Otherwise, it'll slow the development long term. So I'd have liked to have seen more budget cuts in the government paired with these taxes. But keep in mind, 3 choices that the government really has. They can raise revenue, they can cut spending, or as Joe Biden did, you can hit the print button and continue to print money. All of that to balance the budget, because the budget always has to balance. And whether folks know it or not, when it's not politically feasible to increase taxes and raise revenues or to continue cutting spending, they just hit the print button. And that's just been the story since we went to fiat-based currency. So the tax cuts will benefit more residents of California, Texas, and New York, states with high income taxes and states with high property taxes. Effectively, the bill is raising the state and local tax deduction up to $40,000, where it stands at $10,000. It's capped at $10,000 right now, so that's being bumped up to $40,000, being able to be deducted. And I mean, I'm okay with, again, all these tax reductions. We just need to pair them and be fiscally conservative, pair them with appropriate spending reductions so that we're not driving ourselves into the ground here as a country. Another piece of the bill that I find odd and concerning is the idea of giving newborns a $1,000 deposit from the government and creating these tax-free growth accounts. Why create a new entitlement at this time? Because somebody has to pay for it. I don't know. There's some weirdness in this bill. Again, why couldn't they have just passed it as an extension of the tax plan that was in there from 2017? No need to add these newborn $1,000 deposit entitlements. I think that's completely unnecessary. So coming up, I don't know if Trump is going to meet with Senate leadership coming up. That remains to be seen. But I would imagine there's going to have to be some sort of reckoning within the party to get this thing passed and to get this thing through. Republicans may just, from the political standpoint, wrangle with it until early July and then pass it along with the July 4th holiday. Will that be under the radar? Will it go unnoticed because of the holiday? I don't know what their thought process is on that. But there are some Republicans in the Senate pushing back. How long they can push back on leadership, that remains to be seen. But at this point, it doesn't seem like there's going to be more reductions that come into play. So the bill promises a golden age, but how do you reconcile that with a $5.3 trillion deficit, potentially? 3.8 by most estimates, up to 5.3. Higher interest rates coming in as a result of that, higher inflation risks associated with it. That scenario is not a good one, and that's not the right way to grow yourself out of the deficit. So the administration stopping the DOGE process and calling it a success at $150 billion, that too is not going to be a recipe for success. So I'm super skeptical about this bill. I don't like some of the elements in there. Again, like the additional entitlement being put out there for newborns getting a $1,000 account set up for them, tax-free deposit. Why is that? Why do we even create these new entitlements at this point? Right? So leave your thoughts in the comments. I've been extremely supportive of what the administration's put out there, but I'm not satisfied with how the bill is coming into shape here. It's not, a lot of the things that you see are not necessary, and a lot of things that would be necessary, like cutting additional spending, are completely absent. All right, I'll catch you guys another time.